Hello, I'm Ed Fuquay, young adult librarian extraordinaire here at Woonsocket Harris Public Library.
And I'm Miss Gabby from the Children's Department.
We're here for another episode of Book Talking. And today we're talking witches again, but this is different. This is not witches who are horrifically tortured and things like that. Fortunately, mostly. We're talking fictional witches in movies, television shows, books, and things like that.
Yes.
I wanted to come up with a top 10 list because I'm trying to make my videos go viral. I noticed all the really popular things on YouTube have a top 10 list, so that's what I've been working on here.
Yes.
They're the top 10 like fictional witches. And I wrote them down mostly in the order in which they popped into my head.
Okay.
With some assistance from you.
Yes. So with the help of me and some of the other staff members, we all came up with a bunch of witches that...
Yes, people's favorite witches.
Yes.
We're going to start with the Sanderson sisters in Hocus Pocus.
Great movie.
You love that film?
I
Yeah.
love Hocus Pocus so much. I've even been to the house in Salem.
Oh, cool.
It's so nice. I love it. So...
Yeah, I admit, I just watched it this last weekend because I knew this was coming up, and I knew they were so big in the world of like witches, and I really enjoyed it. It's a very good movie.
Because they're like, I don't know, they never have like a moment where they give remorse. Like you said, but they're still like so funny.
They're always evil, but somehow you like them anyway.
Yeah.
They never back down, they never change, and yet somehow you're still sort of rooting for them in the end.
Definitely. Because they have like such a witty character, like personalities.
The dialogue is great. The actresses are all fantastic. There is a Hocus Pocus book which I don't have. It's on order right now.
Okay.
And the book is in two sections. Part of it adapts the original movie, and part of it is a new story.
Ooh, so it gives like a...
So it has a sequel to it and the original story.
Oh, so it picks up like after the movie ends.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
So unfortunately, it's on order and isn't in the library yet.
Soon.
Soon, yes. And the next one, going right to the top, is The Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz.
The witch that everyone thinks of, like you say the word witch and that's the first thing that pops to your head.
She is every stereotype, every cliche put into one. Margaret Hamilton gave a terrific performance. And Wizard of Oz also has that great dichotomy between the evil witches and the good witches.
Yes.
And that was the first one to make that, are you a good witch or a bad witch? Which has kind of resonated throughout, history of witchcraft. Yeah. So it has the Wicked Witch of the West, who has no name in the original story, and then has Glinda, who is a good witch.
Yes. So, and then there's a spin-off to that.
Yes. Well, one thing people recently have been doing in revisionist versions of things, taking a new look at old stories. Yeah. And so someone named Gregory Maguire looked at Wizard of Oz and wondered, how would that story look if we saw it through the evil witch's eyes? So he wrote Wicked. Wicked is all done. In this one, the Wicked Witch is referred to as Elphaba.
Yes.
Have you read this or seen the play?
I have. I read this, and then that's literally been the one Broadway play I've always wanted to see. I've had seen clips of it, but the soundtrack is really good.
Yes, the music is awesome in the Broadway version. There's talk about filming it, but it's hard to believe they'll do better than the Broadway version.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The people they had in Broadway were so fantastic. And I've seen the touring company at PPAC, and the touring company is very good too.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story, and everything happens more or less the way you know it will happen.
You feel remorse for the bad person.
Yeah, but as to who's good and who's evil is a real question that Wicked asks.
Yeah.
When I'm doing when I go out to classrooms trying to get kids to check out more books, I have to come up with thumbnail versions to describe books. And when I was doing that one, the way I said was, it's about two girls growing up. One of them is very blonde and one is very green. Both of them have a talent for magic. And both of them dream of one day going to the Emerald City and meeting the wizard and becoming one of the most powerful witches in the land. And tragically, both of them get their wish.
Really? Is that really what happens?
That's what happens. They start out more or less as friends, but in the end, both of them go in very different directions.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
It is a powerful story. And it definitely makes you look at the original story differently.
Yeah.
You can tell when a revision is good. It makes you think about the original story. You can't look at it the same way once you've seen the revision. So yes, Wicked is excellent. Highly recommended. The other one on my list is Hermione Granger from the Harry Potter series.
Classic.
She's fantastic. She's smart. She's very cool. She doesn't appear on any of the covers or anything because she's really a supporting character in a Harry story. The Harry Potter series is basically the story of Harry, and she's just a small part of that.
Yeah.
But she's still a very good character, a very good role model.
Yeah, Gabby, she was a Muggle, wasn't she?
Hmm?
So she was born.
She was born to Muggles, so
Yeah.
she didn't grow up in the magical world. I think it's one of the reasons why she and Harry bonded as much as they did, was that Harry also grew up with having no idea that magic existed.
Yeah.
So the two of them come to this from a similar background. The fourth one on the list is a personal favorite.
Okay.
I just tossed this one in. When I was a kid, there was a TV series on the air called Bewitched. And Bewitched starred Elizabeth Montgomery, and she plays Samantha Stevens, who is a modern day witch, or modern day for the 1960s. She had married a mortal and was determined to leave the world of magic behind and lead a perfectly ordinary, mundane existence. But she's hampered by her overbearing mother, who is Endora, played by Agnes Moorehead. Endora absolutely hates the guy that she married. She will sometimes grudgingly admit that he's not so bad. She refuses to call her husband. Her husband's name is Darren.
Mm-hmm.
She never calls him Darren. She always calls him something else, like Durwood or Dumbbell or something. She will never stoop to actually calling him by his real name. It's a sitcom, and so it was part of a whole series of magic sitcoms that were very popular for a while in the 60s.
Yeah.
But it did introduce kids like me to the whole idea of this hidden world of magic that's like right next to ours that you're not really aware of. Samantha used her powers to help her husband create this advertising agency
Aw.
where weird and bizarre things happen all the time, and oddly, no one seemed to notice. Much like that NASA astronaut who had a half-naked genie living with them that no one seemed bothered by either.
What?
The I Dream of Genie series was on the air at the same time.
Uh-huh.
It was also about a guy with a magical, significant other.
Yeah.
He was an astronaut who found a genie in a bottle who was released. She was a very attractive woman, dressed basically in a harem outfit, who had magic powers and could do almost anything. Both Samantha and Jeannie had powers that were pretty much unlimited. Whatever they could imagine, they could do.
Yeah.
And both of them had men in their lives who didn't want them to use their magic, ever.
Aww.
Yeah. I mean, as a kid, I kind of sympathized with Endora when I watched Bewitched,
Yeah.
because she was upset that her daughter had given away this world of magic for a world that was really dull and mundane. And Endora really has a point, Why?
She has an amazing life. Why is she just throwing it away?
Darren is great, and he could have asked for anything and gotten it from Samantha, but instead, no, he wants to work a 9-to-5 job and commute into the city every day in the traffic jam, and
Yeah.
It was a weird show. Not exactly a feminist show, but both shows had female characters who were by far the most powerful characters in their universe.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a fondly remembered show. Now, much more recent is Sabrina Spellman.
Yes.
How familiar are you with Sabrina?
So I've watched the late 90s, early 2000s
Yeah.
version. I haven't watched the cartoons or the original
Oh,
ones.
there were so many different versions of
Yeah.
Sabrina. It drove me nuts trying to research this. She was created in 1962 in the Archie comics.
Mm-hmm.
She was originally a one-off character in a humor comic book, but she was so popular they brought her back, gave her her own series. Now, Archie in the 60s, going into the 70s, had his own popular Saturday morning cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
So they spun Sabrina off. They even had a short-lived series called Sabrina and the Groovy Ghoulies.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, in the 60s, you could say words like groovy with a straight face. And they had funny versions of Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and so forth.
Yeah.
And so Sabrina became a mainstay of Archie's universe. Canonically, she lives in Greenville, which is very close to Riverdale, where Archie lives.
Mm-hmm.
And the two football teams are arch rivals. It was a recurring gag in several of the comic books. Sabrina went on to have quite a life of her own, though, outside of Archie. She was in the comic books off and on for years.
Yeah.
And then she had the series with Melissa Joe Hart in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very popular series. They altered her origin a little bit for that one, making her half human and half witch.
Yeah.
And that wound up sticking. That became something almost every version of her. So there's a cartoon in the early 70s, and there's a cartoon in the 90s spun off of the Nickelodeon series.
Okay.
And then after that went off the air, there was a CG version.
Really?
Yeah, it's a short-lived season worth of a CG Sabrina.
Wow.
It just kept going. So they eventually, now the Archie comic book series, Archie wound up with a new editor-in-chief who wanted to take the comics in a new direction.
Mm-hmm.
Since Archie, Jughead, Veronica, Reggie, and Betty, and so forth, have been basically doing the same things in the same malt shop for 60, 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to shake up the Archie universe. They started doing a line of Archie comics meant for an older audience.
Mm-hmm.
And they did one called Afterlife with Archie, where Riverdale has to deal with a zombie invasion.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's genuinely scary, but it has all the Archie characters.
Yeah.
And that was popular enough, they spun off one called Jughead the Hunger, where Jughead becomes an insatiably hungry werewolf. And then there was another series where Veronica became a vampire
Wow.
and started drinking Witty's blood. And they had the crossover series where Jughead and Veronica fought each other, like Wolfman and Dracula.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's hysterical. They were all popular, and they were genuinely scary. And they also did a Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic book, where they updated the Sabrina character into much more like modern terms. And so a couple of years after that, there wound up being a Riverdale TV series.
Which is very good.
Yes, the Riverdale series again takes their Archie characters and updates them, into the 21st century, and tosses in a lot of weird stuff. And then, so they wanted another series to go along with that, and so they hit upon the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Now, in this one, Sabrina's a witch, and she has to decide whether she will be a witch or become immortal. And in this universe, becoming a witch, you have to basically sign a pact with the devil. These are satanic witches.
Really? I've seen it, but I've never actually.
It offended a lot of people. First of all, religious people were offended because they were showing, popular characters as worshiping Satan.
Aww.
And then Satanists are also offended because
they make them sound so bad.
Well, no, because they used a statue of Baphomet on the series, which is actually a direct copy of the statue of Baphomet that's used in the Satanic Church, which they have copyrighted.
Oh, wow.
So it was copyright infringement. And then people in the modern day who actually practice witchcraft, Wiccans and so forth, were also offended at being associated with Satanism.
Wow.
So both the Christians, the Wiccans, and the Satanists were all angry at the series. It got good enough ratings to keep going, though. It's at least its third season now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's a controversial series, but an interesting one. But yeah, the whole idea of a teenager who has amazing powers and then has to choose what world to live in,
Yeah.
In some ways, if she chooses the mortal world, she'll wind up like Elizabeth Montgomery and Bewitched, maybe. So that's been going on for a long time. Now, my favorite witches, relatively recent vintage, although now it's been a long, long time ago, is Willow and Tara from Buffy.
I've watched Buffy.
Yes.
I have, yes.
Buffy is still a very cool series, and Willow starts out as being a relatively ordinary, nerdy girl. She was the computer geek on the show. And then she developed witchcraft, became a witch, and she came out as a lesbian, and was just enormously popular for a while.
Yeah.
Bad things happened to her, which tends to happen to characters in Joss Whedon shows. And she wound up turning evil for a while, and they had to cure her of that. She lost the woman that she loved and became evil, and yeah.
It just keeps the show going. Keeps it interesting.
But ultimately, Willow's a very cool character.
Yeah.
She was very popular at her time. Getting back to the world of books, as technically this is called book talking, The White Witch from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
See, I've never watched the movie. I've heard about it, but...
Yeah, the first movie, their presentation of the White Witch is very good. She's very evil, but she's also very cool and sophisticated rather than be, cackling and, making, filling up a cauldron with a potion and things like that. She's a presence in all the Narnia books, even though she's defeated in the first one.
Yeah.
And in, technically the first one chronologically is Magician's Nephew. We actually learn her origin.
Okay.
A good trivia question, what is the White Witch's real name? Because she's never called by name in Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Her name is Jadis.
Wow.
Jadis is her actual name. So the next one is one that you gave me.
I did, yes.
Yes. Tell me about her, because I've never watched this show.
So Bonnie.
Yeah.
She's from the Vampire Diaries. She's the main character, Elena's pretty much best friend. And the way she got introduced, pretty much that they introduced her as a witch, pretty much was she was spending time with her grandmother, who was practicing witchcraft, and she teaches an occult class at the local college. And she Bonnie just thought that her grandma was just crazy and everything, and then her powers came, and she just became the person that everyone came to when they needed help. So she's a very reliable person.
Did people know that she's a witch? Or?
At first, they just thought that she was kind of going crazy along with her grandma. But then she would show them, and she would lift feathers and light candles at first. But then it got to the point where she was bringing people back from the dead, which was really cool.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And dangerous.
Very dangerous, yeah. But then they just give spin-off witches off of it, but she's the main witch that's in it. So I think it's a cool I love that show.
Yeah. The last one on my list, the number 10, is The Witches from Charmed.
Yes.
Have you seen that show?
Briefly. I've seen a couple of the old episodes, but I've never completely watched it.
I've seen some of the old series. It was on the air at the same time as Buffy, and I didn't like it as much, so I just focused on Buffy in those days. The original Charmed had Prudence, Piper, and Phoebe Halliwell, the Halliwell sisters, who inherited a book of shadows with spells in it, and inherited magic powers, which runs in the family, as it often does in these kinds of shows. That was on the air for many years, has a strong cult following. It has come back as a completely new series with new characters, and I have not watched the new one.
It's on Netflix. I know that both of them are on Netflix if anyone wanted to watch.
Very good for binge watching.
Yes, I know, especially during this time.
Yeah, that is my top 10. Now, there's a dozen other characters we've discussed that we could easily go into because there's so many. We don't have a lot of male witches.
We don't.
Witchcraft is considered kind of a feminine art. And so it's no surprise that in the world of witchcraft, many of the most powerful practitioners are women.
Yeah.
But there's also men in there too. There's a lot of them we could talk about again. Hopefully someone who's out there watching this will come in and comment and give us their ideas for their favorite witches.
Yeah.
I want to do a second one of this.
Me too. This was fun. I
Yes,
liked this.
we'll do more research and find more cool witches to talk about. So which is your favorite witch of the list, do you think?
I have to go with the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah.
She's like the most classic one. She was the first one I think I've ever really seen. I don't know. She's like.
When I was a kid, she really scared me. I admit that.
Me too.
She's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Margaret Hamilton really acted her heart out. She gave it her all.
I know. I would like go halfway to the thing, and when she was on like the house, and then she like threw a fireball. That was the part that always got to me. So I could never get past that as a little kid. But.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What about you? What's your favorite? You think?
I don't know. Well, I loved Samantha Stevens when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That was almost my first introduction to the idea of witchcraft and magic and things like that. I just thought it was such a cool idea, that kind of a character. Yeah, they did like a revival movie that wasn't very good at all. It did have Nicole Kidman. It would have made a good Samantha, but for some reason they didn't go with the original idea.
Well, I've heard about the movie.
Yeah, the movie. I don't know what they were trying to do with that movie. Yeah.
So we have more for next time?
We'll have more next time, yes. And I want to discuss like actual Wiccans at some point in the future too.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we were talking about all these fictional witches and the witches from history, but there's also a whole nother history of witchcraft that involves actual practitioners of a magic system known as Wicca.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll have more fictional witches for you next week, and please send in your comments and give us ideas that we can use. We definitely want more ideas for next time.
Definitely.
All right, so until then, I'm Ed.
And I'm Miss Gabby.
In the meantime, take care of yourself and stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.